What's going on, everybody? Welcome to March. So, I've gotten a lot of requests for tutorials. I have sort of tried to do some tutorial type stuff, but I wanted to really do one with this one, really do a full tutorial with this one, and I want to start doing this kind of stuff more often. So, let me know if you like the way I'm doing this, or how I can make it better, how I can make things better in the future, how I can improve everything. So, gonna do Corvette Corvette by Popp Hunna, and I did get a request for this, and thanks for the request, by the way. Really love this song. The request was by Shantia Martin. I think that's the only one I got for that. It's the only one I have written down for this song, so thanks again for that request. So I thought I'd just show you the entire process of my doing the Songmaker version of this song, as well as just giving a little commentary about how I'm going about doing it, what music theory is behind it, and so forth. Check 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's start off by looking at the settings. So first of all, we're gonna do a length of 16 bars. So that's maxing that out. That just gives us that's the length of our entire Songmaker project, the entire song we're gonna make. Okay, let's look at the next two down. Beats per bar and split beats in 2. So we're putting both of those at 4. First, beats per bar at 4, that's going to give us 4 beats per bar, which is going to put us at 4/4 time, basically, which is the most common time signature. So each bar you have 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. I just counted out 4 bars in 4/4 time. So each, as I'm going to mention a little later, each white section and each gray section in Songmaker designates a bar. So that's what that is, 4 beats per bar. And under that, we have split beats into 4. So for each beat is split into 4 grid lines. So we have 4 beats per bar, and we also have 4 grid lines per beat. So if you multiply 4 times 4, that's 16, right? So that gives us 16th notes. That means the smallest note we can put in is a 16th note, and I'll talk more about notes later. You have 8th notes, 16th notes. So Songmaker is allowing us to do 16th notes, basically. So if you look at, let's say, a white section or a gray section, you'll see 4 beats, and then each beat is split into 4 grid lines. And then if you look at all 4 beats, if you count each grid section, you'll count 16 grid sections per bar. I know this is confusing to some people, so just if you don't totally understand it, no worries, but that's an explanation for people who want to try to start understanding that. All right, moving on, we have scale. So we have, we're going to do chromatic scale, which I've talked about before. Basically, that allows you to play all the notes on the keyboard, not just the major scale. So it's every key on the keyboard, the white keys and the black keys, if you're looking at a piano. Okay, start on low C. So that's going to be our lowest note. And the reason I did low C is because the lowest note of the bass line is C. So our bass line is... And that lowest note, that note, that's a C. So that's why I did the lowest note C, because that's the lowest note of our bass line. That's a C. All right, and then range, we have 3 octaves, which just maxes that out. 3 octaves is as much as it'll let us do. So that gives us the most range as far as the notes. So you have, there's a C, there's the C. Those are all C's, but you have, that's the low octave, middle octave, and the high octave. Low octave, middle octave, high octave. So you have those 3 octaves. So here's 1 octave. Here's the 2nd octave. Here's the 3rd octave. So that gives you all those notes. If you just had 1 octave, you would just have like the low octave. But with 3 octaves, we have... All right, so let's jump in to get started with putting in the notes. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do are the chords of the song, and it's just consists of 3 chords, I think, just kind of in different patterns. So I'm just going to be doing 3-note chords. I'm going to start with the first sequence of notes that I hear in my head, which is, to me, is the most obvious thing I hear, which is dun 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 dun, and then we'll be building the chords on top of those notes. So I'm starting out with those 3 notes, and I'm just going to go ahead and put those where they need to be for the whole song. So this little phrase, the chordal phrase, the dun 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 dun, they happen every other bar, so you can skip a bar in between each of those, and that goes throughout. That's all I'm doing throughout this whole song. It's just those two phrases, dun 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 dun, and we're just gonna alternate those and then skip a bar between every one. Okay, I'll play what I've got so far just to make sure it's sounding right. Okay, now I'm going to go back and add to all these notes that I've just put in the next note up in the chord, which will be the third of the chord. And so I'm just going to be adding these to all those notes. So the first thing we did was the dun 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 dun. Now we're going to add dun 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 dun. So I'm going to talk more about chords in the future, but this will be the third. The first thing we did were the root notes of the chord. Now this will be the third of the chords. Okay, let's play a little bit of that, make sure it sounds good. Oh, I think I missed a note there. Okay, so the third and final notes we're going to be adding to the chord will be the fifths of the chord. We've had the root, which is, you can think of that as the one, the third, and now we'll add the fifth. So we had, the roots were dun 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 dun, the thirds were dun 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 dun. Now the fifth is going to be dun 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 dun. Okay, so here's what the full chords sound like. Let's check them out. Okay, let's think again about how the bars are separated by the white and gray areas. We have different bars here. So we're going to go forward. We're going to count 8 bars and move forward because the drums aren't going to come in until the 9th bar. So we're going to skip 8 bars ahead and start on the 9th bar. So drums, we'll start the drums after 8 bars on the 9th bar. So this beat is very repetitive, which makes this one pretty easy. So it's just like do do tss, do tss, tss, do do tss, do tss, tss. And that second snare is actually a clap when you listen to the record, but we're just going to make them all snares. So it's like the record is kick, kick, snare, kick, clap, snare, kick, kick, snare, kick, clap, snare. But we're just going to do kick, kick, snare, kick, snare, snare, kick, kick, snare, kick, snare, snare. So to figure out where to place these kicks and snares, this is where counting comes in. To make it as simple as I can, you can think about the settings and how we split the beats into 4. So each bar is split into 4 beats because we're in 4/4 time. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar 2, 2, 3, 4. Bar 3, 2, 3, 4. Bar 4, 2, 3, 4. And since we have our beats split into 4, that gives us 4 subdivisions per beat. So each beat of each bar, we have 4 subdivisions, 4 grid subdivisions where we can place a beat. So you just have to kind of listen to the beat and figure out where each kick and snare falls into within each beat of each bar. So if you kind of think about it, if you think about the beat like see how I'm dividing each beat into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Then you have to look at the grid and figure out where each kick or snare is placed within each beat, within each bar. So it's a little complex, but the more you do it, the more you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so the same pattern, we're just going to keep repeating until the end. All right, let's see what we have so far. Okay, so we're going to add the bass line now, and typically with a bass line, the bass note is going to be the same note as the root note of the chord that's happening at that time. And that is pretty much true for this song, except for one chord. So if you look at all the chords here, like starting from the ones that start on the left here, the bottom notes are the root notes of all these chords with the voicings I used. So if you look at the one on the left, the yellow note is the root note, and then the next one, the orange note, is the root note, and then the next one, the red note, is the root note. And then over here, the red notes are the root, the orange notes are the root, and then the yellow notes are the root. So we're going to almost do that for all of these chords, except for one instance, and that is the second chord of the first group of chords. It goes to a different note than the root note. So that is the second chord. We're going to go up to this higher note. Instead of going down with the chords, the dun 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 dun, we're going to go dun 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 with the bass line. Dun 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 dun. And then the second part, dun 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 dun, just right along with the chords. Okay, so with these bass notes, we're simply just going to put bass notes wherever there's a kick drum. So we're not putting a bass note every time there's a chord. We're just putting the bass notes wherever there's a kick drum. So that is pretty typical of songs, is that whenever there's a kick drum, there's a bass note. Not always, but much of the time. All right, let's listen back to what we have so far with the bass added in. All right, now for the final piece, the vocal melody. Now this is a little more, way more challenging, I would say, than what we've done so far, because all this stuff so far, I can kind of explain it a little bit with, I can tell you how chords work and how bass lines work and how drum rhythms and patterns work a little bit, but this vocal melody, although it could be analyzed, thinking about scales and so forth, it's really just, to figure it out, it really just takes a lot of listening and going back and trying to figure it out as you go, and going back and re-listening to things over and over again until you can remember what it is well enough to get it into Songmaker. So for me, just to get the vocal melody close to what it is, I just have to go back and listen to the song, just each line, just listen line by line, and just try to put in each line as I can figure it out and remember it. So I typically kind of, when I do my songs in Songmaker, I'll try to use the bottom octave for the bass line generally, and the middle octave for chords, and the high octave for the melody. Not that I always do it exactly like that. Not to say, like, for example, all the notes of the chords have to be in the middle. You know, they're going to go past those boundaries a little bit. But that's pretty much what I was going for here. Bass line in the bottom, chords in the middle, melody on the top octave. So that's a good way to let the listener differentiate between the notes that you're putting there. I mean, if you put the melody in the middle octave, for example, along with the chords, it would be harder to hear the melody. They would kind of blend in with the chords more. So it's good to separate the octaves for that reason, so you can hear, okay, the chords are in the middle octave, the melodies, even though some of the same notes might be happening in the melody as the chords, they sound like a different part because they're higher in a higher octave. And the same thing with the bass. It wouldn't make sense to put the bass line in the high octave. The bass notes need to be the lowest notes in the song, so they're going to be in the bottom octave. All right, let's see what we have here. Let's check out the whole thing. All right, so hopefully all the stuff I talked about gave you a little insight into music and music theory and songmaker. Just let me know any concepts that you would like me to expound upon in the future. Thanks so much for watching and listening, everyone, and I will hopefully be back very soon. Thank you.